My video for July the 17th is video number 3148. And the title is My Eyes Were Filled with Tears. I had planned to follow up my previous talk with a video about petrochemicals and the impact they have on our lives. However, I did not record that one. Today, I went to the meetup group that meets every Tuesday morning. The discussion went into human sexuality as soon as the two women joined the five men around the table. They did most of the talking, and the importance of touch was discussed in some detail. I already knew that babies who are deprived of touch become damaged, and twins that are separated after birth are demonstrably challenged. I'll never forget the video I watched about that. Of course, touch is important for all of us, yet many adults are touch deprived as we age. For over 2 years, I have been going out dancing with another senior, a lady who does not allow hugs except on the dance floor. The only time she holds me is when we're dancing. If I remember correctly, Elvis sang a song about that, and probably others too. Why are we so reluctant to hug one another? I held back my tears until I went to my car, then teared up for over a half hour as I drove home. Yes, this is the second week in a row in that particular meetup group that the subject of sexuality was the primary focus. Now, of course, other subjects do weave in and out, but it keeps coming back to that. And ironically, it is the ladies that have the most to say. The men mostly sit back and are reluctant because men, let's put it this way, the human race has been indoctrinated and had our minds poisoned in regard to touch. And because of that, we have developed an unhealthy sexuality, one that is not the way I believe it would be beneficial for us. I was going to say the way it was designed by God, but even though I just put that into the picture, I want to leave that out of the picture. We crave touch. And because we're not supposed to, because labels are put on it that's about touch being sinful and touch, sexual improprieties and stuff like that, because of the way that we're brainwashed, we grow up with a distortion of our sexuality, so that adults abuse little children. Children need touch. As I said, I watched a video once of twins that were born, and they were separated at birth, and one of the two twins was dying. And a nurse wisely broke the protocol of the hospital and put them together. And the one that was dying began to thrive and, of course, survived. I'll never forget that video. I may not remember every detail, but I remember what I just shared with you, the overall story. And yet I have personal experience with a lady, as I said in the blurb, that we've been dance partners now for over 2 years. And I have no problem dancing with her. We do almost only slow songs. Very rarely do we do any fast songs, mostly because I don't have the stamina that I used to have. And I think she would have the stamina because she's an amazing woman. Even though she's older than I am, she's demonstrates a fitness that I lack, quite honestly. Of course, I've had 2 open heart surgeries, which have impacted my ability to breathe on a fast song. I mean, and the numb feet, of course, also play a role in that, because I'm not as sure-footed as I'd like to be. So slow works better for me. In any case, this particular discussion today, one of the ladies grew up, and like many people in our culture was abused as a child, but she went through an evolution, if you want to call it that, and she realizes the importance of not just touch, but of sexuality. And I'm going to put the word sacred in front of it. But I was raised that you have to be married, and if you any sex outside of marriage is forbidden. Now, the other lady in the group didn't have a whole lot of touch in her background, and both of them have made adjustments as they move into their adulthood. Neither of them are exactly the same, and no two of us are alike either, whether we're men or women. We're all different. We all have our own experience, and the experience and the indoctrination that we were raised with has a bearing on how our lives pan out, how things happen in our individual worlds. And I know for myself, I left that conversation feeling empty. One other man and myself probably spoke less than anyone else in the room. We were the least involved in the conversation of the 5 men that were there. In any case, I left there and I held back. I'm not one for crying in front of a group that's not appropriate. Now, there was a time that in certain circles that would be appropriate, but this was not one of those environments. And so I did hold back the tears. But as soon as before I even turned the key in the ignition, already tears were welling up in my eyes. And I held back the tears, although they were watery the whole way. I mean, over half an hour as I drove home, I had tears in my eyes. And I realize how sad I am. Now, I get videos about focus on what you want and see yourself as already having it, not as needing it. Because if you're needy, you're only going to get more neediness. Well, I know that that's a teaching and people consider that to be higher spirituality. I think it's lying to ourselves. I don't do this pretend till you make it thing. That never sits right with me, because you can't become a person of integrity by violating your integrity. And that's exactly what I see when we fake it till we make it. But I'll tell you, even as a 72-year-old man, I wish I had more opportunities to not just give 5-second hugs like we used to do in some of the churches that I went to. Everybody would go around and hug 5, 10, 15 people in the area around where they were sitting, and that was part of the service. And there are churches that practice that. But we need more than that. We need to actually hug each other and have an energy exchange. And I'm not talking about sexuality. That can happen or not happen. Now, the one lady says that sexuality is good and we should share our sexuality with the appropriate people and not be afraid and not think that it's out of bounds to do it when you're not married to the other person. I've had an opportunity to do that on one occasion, and I could not do it because it just felt wrong, even though I lined all the ducks up in a row and got permission from the parties involved, but it didn't feel right for me because of my indoctrination. Anyway, tears filled my eyes. Thank you for listening to this video. Namaste.